Once again, time for another Mitchell Talks Energy podcast with Jerry Bohnen. I'm Scott Mitchell, and that handsome gentleman is Jerry.
Oh, whoa.
Good to see
How
you.
are
sir.
you, Scott? Oh, good. Busy
Really,
week. Busy week.
yeah, it's a busy week. Okay, so we're starting with the blockbuster. You know, our favorite topics have been, over the last 3 years have probably been Winter Storm 2021 in Rofer,
Hmm.
and we've had. First off, we've been entreating people. You really in the media, like you really need to start covering this story because at some point it's going to break out into a big story. I think it has now. We saw you had a story last week, I believe it was on the 17th, about a committee hearing in the House, which
Yeah.
got
Hmm.
very heated. And then the Corporation Commission yesterday met, and we keep this
Whew.
tally sheet, right? About who's, and let's right up front, we should probably say the bills we're talking about right now deal with utilities companies that are wanting things. What they want is in dispute as to if it saves consumers or hurts consumers. A couple of bills that are out there and that are, as we get down close to May, witching hour, and strange things happen. And number two, bills are never dead.
Hmm.
I heard it this weekend, Jerry. I heard another one, another journalist.
Oh,
Please stop. Anyway,
okay.
because they're not.
Yeah.
And so we're watching this Corporation Commission meeting yesterday. And by the way, for public, like House meetings, House committee meetings, corporation, there you can go get on the web. Okay,
Hmm.
you can see these like we do. And this thing took a turn for a couple of bills. The Rofer, the proponents say it's not a Rofer bill. Um, there's I don't know how to get into that one. The
I
whole point
know.
is
Yeah.
that it's the you believe me or you're lying eyes sort of version of that one, but also this 988, which is another bill in sort of the same basket. And the commission took it up. Now, let's quick background
Hmm.
before I turn you loose on this one. The Corporation Commission is made up of three really, really influential people. The first Republican speaker in decades was Todd Hiett. He's a commissioner over there, and we've been chronicling some of the controversies around him. He's still a Republican and still has a jillion friends. The former Senate Majority Leader, Kim David, Senator David, is now Corporation Commissioner. She's the chair of the commission, and newly elected Brian Bingman, who was the pro tem of the Senate. Now, what
Hmm.
you have there is you have a whole lot of experience and a whole lot of people with a whole lot of friends. Correct?
True. That's exactly right.
That's objective comment. All right. And Jerry, so having that, they had their meeting, the CorpCom, the three experienced leaders, and
Boy.
just take us through what happened.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about House Bill 2747, the one we've been following for several months now, and Senate Bill 998. Both, they're very similar in nature, in which they promote the use of natural gas for electric generation projects in the state. And Representative Trey Caldwell, the Republican from Faxon, little town just east of Lawton, he's been the promoter of this, and he's also been leading these efforts over the past. I think this is his third year, and we've been, reporting on these efforts that have developed into right of first refusal, or it's not a right of first refusal. Well, last week, as we reported, what he unleashed on the Corporation Commission and basically called it a bureaucratic agency that was doing nothing, and that the legislature needed to step in and give it direction and control. Well, at the meeting on Tuesday, corporation commissioners had some really juicy comments to make about that. It was an issue. Okay, I'm going to also include the fact that just, I think it was last week, we've been also reporting on every one of the non-public meetings the Corporation Commission held. And one of those, well, they would always get updates on the bills in the legislature, but we'd never know how they stood on those. And 2747 was one of them. Well, then Tuesday, Corporation Commissioner Todd Hiett, I guess he must have had his fill of all of this, and basically said, I want to talk about it in public, and they did. And that's when he said, 2747 and 998, would they have some constitutional issues on this? And he doubts that they really would result in the economic savings that the author and supporters, and I guess lobbyists too, who support it, are contending that there will be savings to the consumers. Basically, what it would do is promote the use of natural gas, and that would give the edge or the leg up on natural gas industry for these projects, and that it would also heap upon the consumers the construction cost at the time of the construction. And that didn't sit well with Todd Hiett, the former Corporation Commission chairman and the former Speaker of the House. And it was just one thing led to another. And then the Corporation Commission chairwoman, Kim David, had her say, and she says she just has too many constitutional worries about this. And finally, she unloaded on Representative Trey Caldwell, responding to what she called a rather aggressive attack on the commission last week by Caldwell, and went on to basically say, every time I turn around, I'm being hit by a lobbyist in support of this bill. And he says, I don't know, you need to tell, these lobbyists who's coming up with the talking points for Caldwell. And the fact that lobbyists get some better talking points, if you want to make any support at all. But she too came out adamantly against this, both bills.
I think I've made it known throughout most of this that my biggest concern with this bill is the fact that we are tasked with rate making here at the commission, and we have very stringent ethical standards that we live by as commissioners, because we have that responsibility of being that stopgap between the ratepayer and the utility company and ensuring that business is done correctly. My biggest concern with this type of legislation is that it's basically going around the commission and going to the legislature and asking them to put in statute something that you would like to have done without those same ethical boundaries put in place. So I have a lot of friends that are lobbyists. It seemed like every time I turned around, there was somebody else that was working for one of the utility companies pushing this bill. So there's a plethora of lobbyists over there. And then, of course, we have Representative Caldwell, who called this commission out quite aggressively in committee meeting, which I thought extremely unfair and uneducated on his part, because I can tell you as one, because he says in here, it's my understanding that they have chosen not to do this, which is to do the CWIP. And then it goes on to say that it's something that is a question that should be asked of all three corporation commissioners. It's the purview of this legislature that when we see things in a bureaucratic governmental agency that's not working correctly, that it's under our purview to help direct them in getting it right. And I can tell you exactly that none of you utility companies have brought anything like this before me, and I've been here a little over 2 years. I don't know about you, Commissioner Hiett, whether this has been brought before you.
No, in terms of a CWIP rider, I have not seen a CWIP rider for recovery prior to the plant becoming used and useful before me since my time here, which is 10 years.
So I really do not appreciate whoever gave the representative his talking points, because I am tired of being slandered in the building across the street with our legislature when it's not true. So I want to make that point. This is my concern about this all along has been the constitutionality of it. This is why we are statewide elected commissioners, is to ensure that we come up with the best solution for the utility company as well as the ratepayer. All right, it isn't our job to ensure that the utility company can't make a profit. It's our job to ensure that you still do make a profit while protecting the ratepayer. So I'm upset about how the committee meeting went the other day. And I thought about reaching out to the representative, and then I thought, no, I'll reach out to the utility companies that have hired all of the lobbyists over there to task you with ensuring that your lobbyists have the correct talking points when you're visiting with a representative, so that he's well aware of exactly what he's running and why he's running it. It's really, I mean, I would like to be able to look at CWIP on a case-by-case basis when it comes before us. I have never had that opportunity. So that's been my biggest complaint about this. And the fact, like I said, that constitutionally, we are tasked with this and we live by very rigorous standards because of that the legislature is not held to.
And then Commissioner Brian Bingman wasn't quite as stern and I guess strong in his response, but he basically said the Corporation Commission has a plethora of other eyes. In other words, all these aides they have, they review the bills and then give them, what they've determined to be the facts and the substances of the issue, and they can make a determination. And Bingman, I thought, was kind of apologetic in one sense, because he said, these legislators sit over there and they have hundreds of bills to read and review, and they don't have the capability that we have in determining, that basically they don't understand what we do, according to Bingman. And I thought it was just a fiery response on the part of all three commissioners. They took a vote 3-0 to oppose both bills. So now, Scott, the question is, what will be the impact of that vote and that decision and that stand on the fate of 2747 and SB 998? 2747 was already approved in the House, and now it's in the Senate, where it's been stalled for the last couple of weeks. Do you think it's dead now?
I'm always reluctant to predict.
I
It's
know.
like trying to time the stock market. I've not been very good at that. I will tell you this. Well, past is prologue, and all this bill is different. And the chairman of the A and B, Detroit Caldwell, has said publicly that this bill is different than the last 3 years, the previous 2 years, whether it's a ROFR, not a ROFR, whatever. The whole point is that the past has been, it gets passed out of the House really fast. Remember, that's it's different administration the past 2 years. This first year of Speaker Hilbert's term, it goes out of the House fast, goes over to the Senate, and dies. Well, I'm sorry. And it gets mired down because they're never dead.
Mhm.
They sign and die. There's not any sort of, it appears from what I watch and read, that they don't have a aggressive author in the Senate right now. Another deadline's coming. That means nothing, with something like this. But the this 998, or is it 988? I can't remember what the number on this one is.
998.
This one's got the title on it.
Mhm.
They
Yes.
have a little, which significantly raises the stakes on it. With a title on it, it can go on to the governor if the House were to pass it. If the title were off, there'd be some more work on it, but it's not. And that's, I'm not sure.
Hiett called it basically a live round.
Yeah, it's a live
Because-
round. So
yeah.
if the title was off, they could do some adjustments to it. But now it's either or. Well, you can amend it on the floor. The point is right now with the title on, it's a real live round that could possibly end up going to the governor. And then so you've got, when you have three people like Hiett, David, and then Bingman taking, have you seen this before recently, Jerry, where
No.
commission was
I
3-0
have
to
not.
7.
No,
No, not on this deal.
no.
And those are influential individuals. So you asked me a straight question. Do I think these things are alive? I think they're dead. Well, I think that they're stuck. And I don't think they're going to go anywhere. And I think if it were to pass the House and go to the governor, I think the governor and I has sufficient reason to veto it.
You know, I also think
Covered,
that,
I should say, covered to veto.
yeah, this is quite a stern message to the lobbyists who've been supporting these bills. I would like to be a little mouse, in the meeting of all these lobbyists and see what they're going to do now. I mean, do they back away from promoting such a bill? Let me make one other observation about the discussion. I think it was for the first time that there were some real serious issues raised about I'll call the guts of this bill. And that was by Commissioner Hiett, in which he started talking about the fact that, okay, I'm quoting him now verbatim, the construction on these bills, because it would promote the use of natural gas for natural, generating plants. The construction would be 4 to 5 years. So the consumers would be paying for this investment and taking the risk of this investment, but years go before realizing any benefit from it. It's being touted at the Capitol as a savings, and that is possible. There would be some savings, but that savings would only be realized by consumers years into the future, 15 to 20 years down the road. An 80-year-old consumer, do they want to roll the dice whether they're going to enjoy that savings 15 years from now? So he and David fear this would basically take control from the Corporation Commission. David said, you're going around into the legislature, you're skirting us basically to try and get control of these projects. So to me, what Hiett raised the issue was, it's the economics of it, and you're giving favoritism to natural gas and only natural gas for these electric generating plants. And then at some point in the meeting, Hiett also raised the fact that in 2024, the state of Kansas adopted this very bill, maybe not verbatim, and he said now they have issues because immediately Effigy, which is a huge electric utility based in Kansas City, and it immediately filed 2 requests with the Kansas Corporation Commission for $3.4 billion in 2 natural gas powered electric generating plants. Well, the Department of Defense, according to Hiett, and I can't think of Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, a big manufacturing company, and the AARP have tried to challenge this. However, here's the issue. Because the bill took some of the power away from the Kansas Corporation Commission, there's not a lot the commissioners or the regulators in Kansas can do to, allay the concerns of these big 3, especially the Department of Defense. And Hiett is saying, if you do that, that's what's going to happen here in Oklahoma. And so the commissioners fear, constitutionally, this statute would remove some of their power.
In favor of whom?
Utilities.
Okay.
Now, on looking at it by some, they would say, no, it's promoting natural gas in an oil and natural gas state. Well, like Commissioner Hiett or David said, we're not elected statewide to ensure that utilities make a profit. Yes, I know. It was excellent stuff. I mean, in terms of listening to their comments.
Let me ask you.
I know.
Do you want to look into this or not? Okay. I mean, here's the thing. Let me give an assignment for folks in the media. We're a member of SPP. Okay. And they sort of control the flow of electrons through the area. They do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to see how often, and there's a mix, okay? As we famously learned, for those amateurs like me, back in 2021 that, you have a mix of energy now. And what I'd like to know now is how often what kind of energy does SPP deploy? How often do they deploy natural gas? What's the cost of the energy that they deploy? Hey, this is something that investigative reporters need to hitch up on. All right. If you're like doing a bunch of legislation just to pick a winner and loser among energy fuels that are out there, and we talked about this often. I mean, we've decried some of these maneuvers recently, all the way back to the Biden administration, where it was restricting LNG exports. Picking winners and losers ain't a good thing, right?
Nope.
That's not government's job. And
No.
it's one of the things that I've appreciated when I listened to the governor and Secretary Starling. They're not in the business of picking winners and losers. The biggest thing they've been against is eminent domain. But they have said, we don't want monopolistic behaviors. We want free and open markets. And I think this is one of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen, where you see 3 Republican corporation commissioners specifically naming bills and saying what a lot of people have been saying to us for this past year is this is what these bills really do.
Right,
Extraordinary.
and Hyatt pointed that out. He would like some of the supporters to take a deeper look into this legislation, and he indicated that it was kind of unclear here that the latest information from the Energy Information Administration, he said the percentage of the fuel that's used in generating electricity is determined by the Southwest Power Pool. And he says that's a decision, not a decision of a utility or the commission. That's a quote from Hiett. That's a decision once all power is distributed by SPP. Okay, so now we await the fate of these bills.
It has a couple of things. One, there has been a marked level of exasperation and tempers flying around on this.
Mhm.
Psychologists have to figure that one out as to what's going on there. I've seen bills like this carried for years where people are passionate about something, but not to this level. And usually when passions there's stuff on the line, right? I mean, this is big business. I just think the other thing that's really disturbing about this is Commissioner David talking about the lobbyist angle.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I turn around, there's another one over there. Here's your second media assignment. Why don't you go look and see who all's working for whom? That'd be a great story. You got to register, find out who's working this thing. Why so many? Just leaving it there. We're giving people homework assignments, but we've been in this space by ourselves for a long time, Jerry.
Yeah, we have, but that's all right.
It's if you want to win some awards, just get in here and follow this one, because you have virtually every interest group dealing with energy involved in this in some way. But the ledger's starting to stack up for and against, and some very, very big influential people have now said no on these bills.
Well, it's obviously, I think I've been, like you, hounding on this. Energy is so critical for our future and our presence time as well. And it's not getting the coverage, I believe, as a longtime journalist, that it deserves. It affects our everyday life.
Listen, I've had messages and phone calls from people going, why isn't more coverage of this happening? These are big stories.
Mm-hmm.
I've got it as we get ready to get out of here, because this thing's going to continue for a while. I mean, time this is out, it's going to be old news, because there will be responses. I don't know where this is going to go, but I'd leave it with Commissioner David's comments. Quote, this is in your story. And then to set this up, by the way, if you'll go back to OK Energy Today on the 17th, the story about the committee hearing, which you can see those, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they can.
For yourself. If you want to make up your own mind, you can. There's enough evidence out there to make up your own mind, all right, without even going over who's for and against. Commissioner David, quote, I thought about reaching out to the representative, and She's talking about Chairman Caldwell. And then I thought, I will reach out to the utility companies that hired all the lobbyists over there to task you with ensuring your lobbyist has the correct talking points. It only takes you don't have to take too many steps to figure out what she's saying about what's being said about these bills ain't true. Is that an objective reading of her comments?
That's right. And I admitted in our discussion the fact that she said, I'm tired of being slandered in the other building, meaning the legislature. And I thought, wow, that was quite a comment from her. Anyway, you're right. We need to wrap up here.
I started off with this, the famous joke, the famous comedian, long gone, Richard Pryor, who told the joke about he was with another woman and his wife walks in and she goes, what's going on here? And he says, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes?
Yeah.
Right. And we've been joking about, some of the comments about this legislation, like, oh no, it's really going to save you money. And
No.
there's a lot of people that are saying that some of the proponents claims about this are not true. Here's another thing. Okay. This is another deal. Proponents have not been, there are comments, and you provided that other side of the story. It's a long statement from former Commissioner Jeff Cloud. They formed the utilities have an alliance, a lobbying group, and former Commissioner Cloud is on that. And his statement about what the bills do is in the OK Energy Today story. So you can read that statement. Not every single person that we've talked about today says it's bad. So Commissioner Cloud has made a statement about these bills and why they should be passed. But the point is, there's just so much out there that a person has to regurgitate. And right now, the ledger's starting to tilt towards influentials saying it's not good.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Okay. Yep. Bottom line, they contend it's a bad bill.
All right. And by the end of this day, there will be something else on this. We do it twice a week. This may be, we get a little more frequency may go up.
Yeah.
Okay. Great story, Jerry. And OK Energy Today.
Excellent.
Take care. All right. And we'll be seeing you real soon. Thanks for watching Mitchell Talks Energy. And we'll be back whenever we need to be. And otherwise this weekend. See you later.